welcome to Podtoid. I'm CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dan.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Malcolm.
And this is episode 437. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have what is hopefully going to be a good show, but probably really depressing show in store for you today. We're going to talk about some Animal Crossing New Horizons, Call of Duty Warzone, Yakuza 4, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And then a little bit later, we're going to look in on everything in 2020 that you've been looking forward to that's now canceled or postponed. This has been a very, very weird week for everyone. And, we've avoided talking about the coronavirus on the show for as long as we could, but now it kind of seems like it's the only thing that you can talk about no matter what.
Not the only thing.
Well,
you could talk about Roger Corman's sci-fi movies.
I guess we could talk about that. Although I didn't prepare anything for Roger Corman's sci-fi movies.
Well, luckily for you, I have this big stack of notes on every film he produced, directed, and wrote. It's all here. Battle Beyond the Stars, Death Race 2000, Chained Heat, are all here.
Wait, Chris, are those mimeographed? How old are those notes?
I have to write them down on paper, or the chances are I'll just it's safer for me. Blade Runner 2049, when we find out that we've just lost everything off the internet and all that's left is what was written down. That's basically me whenever I try to store anything in the cloud.
I'm with you. I have just notebooks scattered around my apartment of just my idea books from the past, 10, 15 years. That is just,
right. They're
all half filled out with just notes that I take. And I like to discover the bad ideas I used to have way back when I was only 33 or something. Oh God, stupid CJ then. Those crazy ideas.
And also it's dual format, because this stack of notes, we're going to have to start talking about them soon, because I think I'm going to have to move them into the bathroom for another use at some point.
This is a glimpse into the madness that's going to descend on everybody when we start going into quarantine. I've seen a lot of tweets about how the cabin fever is going to set in, and I feel like taking reams and reams of notes about old films is going to be what a lot of people end up doing.
Yeah, well,
I can't wait.
Start.
I can't wait to hear CJ's audio logs over the period of 9 months.
Yeah, CJ, just make sure you leave those audio logs scattered around. Yeah.
So around the area.
So I can, as I make my way through your town, I can pick them up one at a time and piece by piece put together what happened, and maybe pick up a couple of passwords along the way.
So in this future, I'm either dead or a homicidal maniac that's running this city. That's
yes, yeah.
That's comforting. That's a very comforting thought right there.
You could be the latter. Look on the bright side.
Yes, I could be the latter, beckoning you to this tiny town with a plane crash that you somehow survive.
Yeah. And you could have a catchphrase do what you want. And every time you say do what you want, I feel obliged to kind of push forward.
It is just little cartoon drawings on the wall of CJ wearing someone's head as a hat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Coronavirus is terrible.
Yeah.
They'd finally started to run out of toilet paper in the shops near me, which took a long time to happen. And I just despair at it. Just in a sense of, oh my God, really? No.
Yeah, the panic buying has finally hit my area. I went to the store yesterday and they were completely sold out of toilet paper, paper towels, which people better not be flushing down the toilets. All the ramen was gone. There was a single bag of rice sitting there, really sad. The soup aisle was decimated. All the best soups was gone, and all that was left was Boston clam chowder or some other garbage. All the bleach was gone. All the bottled water was sold out. And I think a month from now, millions of people in this country and probably around the world are going to look in their pantries and think, Jesus Christ, why did I buy so much chicken top ramen?
You see, I went through all this. I feel like I'm 2 weeks ahead of you guys because our infection rate is a bit higher, and the panic buying happened a couple of weeks ago. But I went shopping yesterday, and there are still shortages, but you can get pasta, you can get rice, you just can't get all of the different types that you could get before. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping it kind of stays that way now that the initial surge has happened, and now people are going to be more sensible because they've basically filled up their cellar already.
Well, I think what might happen, and I'm not a fucking expert on anything, but like, I think the trend, the online trend of showing people going nuts in supermarkets is like a week old now. So
Yeah.
we need to move on. We'll move on to something else, like a cat in a puddle or something like that. And as long as people aren't seeing videos of like people going fucking crazy, then they won't do it either. Because all of this is fucking tribal, all of it. I think there's so much of this panic buying. It all comes from this sense of like it's the only control kind of people feel they have, because they can't go out and buy a medicine that's going to stop it from happening, and they can't necessarily kind of stop themselves from catching it, and they can't look to their leaders to tell them what to do. So in a sense, going out and spending money on stuff for the house, I think feels like the only sense of here's a proactive move I can do that might save me.
Yeah.
And seeing other people do it, much like any form of almost advertising or anything like that, kind of just confirms to them, I should be doing it as well, because everybody else is. You know, as I said on the show last week, I'm not playing down like COVID-19, not at all. But I am kind of despairing at the mentality of how people are choosing to kind of prepare themselves for it. Because I think it is. I just think it's a little worrying. I think, as I said last week, I think it's kind of a sign that, like, if something even worse happens, we're not prepared for it as human beings. We're not prepared to deal with it.
Pretty much.
In my lifetime, and I've not been around fucking forever, do you know what I mean? But in my lifetime, I have never seen a situation, a global situation, where so much muddled, incorrect information is mixed in with facts on a minute by minute basis.
Yeah, there's some stuff going around that's just genuinely confusing, like The Guardian, which is okay, it's a bit wobbly sometimes, but is largely regarded as being a fairly reliable news source, is reporting that in France, doctors are saying that ibuprofen aggravates the symptoms, whereas Germany, the health authorities are reporting it as fake news. And like in that situation, what are you supposed to believe? Because
Right.
both of those are potentially credible sources of information.
And really, who wants to believe the Germans? That's always a troubling historical trend.
You guys had a state of emergency declared by the same man who said the coronavirus wasn't happening.
Well, technically, he said that the media response and coverage was a hoax, not necessarily that itself. But he also did say that we have 15 cases now, and pretty soon we're going to have 0. So, you know, yeah.
In an age where kind of we've got so much readily available information, like we are the information age right now, it's like a baffling irony that apparently that's just made things harder, not easier.
Yeah. And because of all the misinformation, you have, like I said, all these headlines going out of warning people, hey, that's not real. These are just a few that I wrote down. Doctors are asking people not to masturbate with hand sanitizer, and that just sounds painful.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so when I was like 14 and figuring all that out, and the flowering bloom of puberty had struck me hard, I did that once with conditioner.
Oh.
And yeah, right. And I think that for a lot of our listeners who are guys who would go, oh yeah, I remember that. And that taught me at a very young age, there's certain things that are not good lubricant.
Yeah.
And I don't know how anyone on earth could think hand fucking sanitizer would be good. And plus it just evaporates really. Oh boy.
I think about that, and then I immediately go to Robert Pattinson masturbating in the lighthouse. Like, that's how painful it sounds to me.
Yeah.
That's an almost unwatchable scene. It looks so painful.
Another headline: doctors say drinking bleach or snorting cocaine does not cure coronavirus. By the way, could you imagine if we had an outbreak where the cure was snorting cocaine? The president wouldn't have a press conference with like the CEOs of Target behind him. He'd have a press conference with El Chapo, Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, and every Wall Street trader up on stage.
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly. Alex Jones sent cease and desist to stop selling sham anti-coronavirus toothpaste. Sure, why not?
Can we fire Alex Jones via a cannon into the sky or something?
If only. I don't know why he's trying to make more money. He's just going to go to all those school shooting victim families. Man buys 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer and now he can't sell them. You guys probably may have saw that. Guy drove.
Likewise, cannon sky.
I just saw an update this morning about that guy. The Attorney General's office is at one of his storage units grabbing all those bottles. Since he can't sell them, he's donated them, and they're going to disperse them to needy people.
Yeah, that was the update on the article that I saw last night, that he was looking for ways to donate them, but also you shouldn't just be that asshole who.
Oh no, it doesn't.
stockpiles.
It doesn't like. It's a happy ending, but no, the guy's a fucking garbage monster. Fuck him. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, if you're gonna hoard anything to sell for a profit during this crisis, Ring Fit Adventure, that's where the money is. You sell that shit to people overseas, you will make bank. And then finally, this is my favorite: Mexicans wondering if Trump's wall could stop coronavirus from spreading south. That, I mean,
Oh, fucking hell.
oh, this goddamn world.
I saw something on Twitter, or rather my boyfriend showed me something on Twitter, where a university in Norway was advising like students to be careful if they've come from countries with less equipped health systems, and it mentioned the US as an example.
That sounds about right. There's a nonprofit that does free medical services, and they usually go around the world to places without medical care. And I believe now they do 75% of their work in the United States. So, yeah, we are not on good health terms here.
You know, like, I think just a really good international symbol of all of this is I saw the other day that in Italy there was this professional soprano, and I can't remember her name, this professional opera soprano, and she opened the windows because they were all quarantined. She opened her bedroom windows and just sang for like the evening, so people could just listen to this like top level soprano, just basically giving this free concert to everyone that could open their windows and listen in. Meanwhile, over here, like, wash your hands while singing Happy Birthday to make sure it lasts 20 seconds. And it's just like, that fucking, to me, that's the fucking analogy for like Britain in this crisis, basically.
Whereas in Germany, we're going to basically end up doing what Italy's doing probably in about a week, except for people will be blasting Scooter out of their bedroom windows.
All right, let's put a kibosh on this for now, because we're going to be getting back to it a little bit later and start talking about games. And I'll go ahead and start us off. As of Monday morning, before this podcast officially airs, my review for Animal Crossing New Horizons has gone live. I've been playing it since about February 28th, and a lot of people have been looking forward to this game, and I can assure them that it is good. Nintendo did not drop the ball with this one. But you're going to have to be in the right mindset to really get the most out of it. And I'll explain what that means in a second. First of all, I just want to point out that this is it's easily the best the series has ever looked on the Switch. Animal Crossing New Leaf was a major step up in terms of graphics for the series from City Folk on the Wii, and this is just another improvement on that. Specifically, the museum is just gorgeous and has a lot of little details, including my favorite. When you go to the fossil wing of the museum, on the ground they show the evolutionary path for the dinosaurs from the oldest things you can possibly dig up in this game to basically your animal neighbors. And I don't know how accurate it is. I would love to show it to a paleontologist to get their reaction to see if it is accurate, but it's just such a nice little detail that they threw in there. Despite what they say in the ads for the game and what we've seen in the trailers, camping actually doesn't play a massive role in it. Maybe I just played the game wrong, but all of the tents that people pitched in my town were gone by the end of the first week. I got out of my tent and into a house on the second day. So every time you've seen a trailer and you have a bunch of people, putting up furniture around their tent, it's almost as if they're playing against what the game is asking them to do to get to that, to have that be on there. And I don't know if maybe down the road in the game, tents will come back and play a major role. I doubt it. But it's so weird that they built up that when it's such a small fraction of what you do in this game.
Does the camping element have any kind of tie into the mobile game or anything like that?
No, nothing.
So it's not like it's cross promotion or anything.
Nope. The only cross promotion they have is you can get items right now in Pocket Camp that are from New Horizons. Like you can get a big version of the plane that you fly in on and some other stuff. So yeah, there's no tie-in. It's the idea behind it is that you're on a new island, you're on this new world, and obviously you're not going to have a house ready, so you're sleeping in a tent, which makes sense. And I wish that they would have made that a larger part of the game. Like maybe have your first week be stuck in a tent as you explore this island. It would have, to me, it would have worked better with the theme than allowing me to get into a house at the beginning of my second day. So. Oh, and also when people come and move to the town, they are not moving into tents. They're just moving into fully formed houses. So like literally the only tent on my island right now is at the campground. That's it. There's a lot of restrictions at the beginning of the game. If you've played Animal Crossing, you go through and you choose your location based on the randomly generated designs. Look carefully at it before you choose, because you're not going to have full access to the entire island right away. Rivers are too big to jump across, and there are no bridges on this island because it's a deserted island. And the vaulting pole that we have seen in the trailers for it, you don't get that right away. You have to earn that, and that's kind of the big difference between this Animal Crossing and the ones from the past. Is you really have to play intensely, or maybe not intensely. You have to play regularly and actually be driven towards improving your island in order to unlock everything. In the past, you kind of just have to play every day and stuff happens around you and you just adapt to it. This is the exact opposite. You have to make stuff happen here. You have to be the one to buy plots for houses for your animal neighbors to come live in. You have to, you choose where every building in this town goes. You choose... Yeah, eventually you'll be able to completely redo the interior of the island and reshape the rivers and the land and raise it or lower it. It's kind of like being the mayor from New Leaf, but on steroids, because you're given just complete control. But in order to get that control, you're going to have to work and start completing tasks. You get the phone in the game called the Nook phone, and one of the items on it is a program called Nook Miles. And basically, these are just tasks that you do just playing Animal Crossing that you unlock Nook Miles to spend. And so, like, catch 10 bugs, catch 5 fish, craft 3 items. Those will unlock Nook Miles that you can then spend on items for your town or new recipes to craft. And they made a big deal out of camping, but really crafting is the centerpiece of this game, because crafting is everything. You craft all of your tools, you craft a bunch of your furniture, and you can customize it in different colors and use the pattern editor to make different patterns on like the blankets and the pillows. And one thing people should know, and I put this in my review, and I know this might be controversial based on what I have seen people react to the same system being in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but your tools break. The first set of tools you build are labeled flimsy, and they will break after 10 uses. And then as you keep playing, you'll learn new recipes to unlock stronger versions of it. And I assume eventually we'll be able to unlock golden versions of everything that doesn't break, so I don't have to worry about that. But just like in Breath of the Wild, replacing broken tools is not that difficult. There's always a station that you can build at where Tom Nook is, and so you never really have to worry about being without a tool, just so long as you have all the different ingredients that you need.
But people hated that shit though, didn't they? Right?
They did, right. And I know people are going to hate it in this too. Okay. And I think another thing people might hate is the fact that you do have to be in this for the long term. you really can't just like play for 3 weeks and then kind of taper off it, because you're not going to even see a fraction of what this game has to offer. And I'm not talking about like, holidays or special events. I'm talking about getting mainstays of the series to your island. If you're not working at it, you're not going to see people like Blathers or Celeste or Sable and Mabel. You actually have to put in the effort in completing these tasks and of doing some crafting. So I think that's going to be the big change up in mentality for people if they're coming from New Leaf or any of the old games to this one. And then finally, one thing I didn't get to talk about in my review, but the music is all great. The tune that plays at 7 p.m. is my particular favorite, and I've been unlocking all of the KK Slider songs throughout, and every day they've been available, and they're all just wonderful. It's a really good game. For me, it might end up being my favorite in the series. It might finally surpass the first one for me, just because I'm not someone who totally meshes with the open-ended nature and kind of just, you can play however you want concept behind Animal Crossing. I kind of like to be more objective-oriented, and this fulfills that for me. So I'm in it for the long run. I hope a lot of people are as well, because I think what they have created here is really what I have wanted Animal Crossing to be for like a decade now. And now all I'm doing is just waiting to see how they implement in-game purchases, because they're coming, but we don't know how.
Gotta wait for those reviews to get out there first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just looking at Pocket Camp, and I'm looking at those fortune cookies. I'm like, motherfuckers, better not. You better not. So, yeah. I think the wait will be worth it for people, and especially if you're someone who has, you open up your copy of New Leaf and it says you have 3,000 hours on a single account. It's like, yeah, you're going to love this game. And if you've seen some of the most recent commercials for it, there's so much shit that you can make in this game. There's a wrestling ring that I saw in like one of the latest commercials, and I'm thinking, oh, that's beautiful, brilliant.
And the really funny thing is you fucking know you're going to be able to have more like 5-star matches in that wrestling ring with those characters than you can in like 2K20.
If there's one complaint I have about this game outside of the camping fumble, it's that object interaction is not yet as good as it is in Pocket Camp. Like in Pocket Camp, every character will utilize every little object that you put in your town. I haven't seen anything close to that yet. So I hope that maybe through an update or something, that becomes a bigger feature of this, because that was my favorite thing from Pocket Camp was, putting in a pool and seeing all the characters go swimming in the pool, or a slide, or like a lemonade stand, and they'd man the lemonade stand. So I haven't seen anything like that yet, but I do have a giant Godzilla monster next to my museum. So, take
Swings
the good, you take the bad.
Yeah. So like, who do you think is the best wrestler out of the Animal Crossing posse?
Well, I just imagine that KK Slider is like Honky Tonk Man, and he just smashes his guitar over someone's head.
Good answer. Yeah.
For that wonderful 80s reference for all of our audience. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Charlotte. You're still on the Yakuza pathway, and you're on to Yakuza 4.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by how fast I finished Yakuza 3, because I only started playing it 2 weeks ago, and I haven't played games much at all this week, and yet I still managed to finish it yesterday. I think the problem I'm encountering with Yakuza games is that I want to do the side stuff, but they never, like, I can do it for maybe a couple of hours, but then it feels like it's sort of encouraging you to go on with the story, and then before you know it, the game's over and you can't explore everything without going into the premium adventure mode. So I'm finishing stuff up faster than I would like, really, but more just because I want to also experience the full story. But yeah, 4 has started off probably the strongest of the last couple of games, I'd say. Definitely stronger than 3, because I'm actually really interested in the character that started off with, because you don't start as Kiryu, you start as basically a loan shark with a heart of gold. And it's a really interesting story so far, just this guy who was homeless, and then he, in the aftermath of the Millennium Tower exploding, spoiler alert, he collected up a load of money, invested it in the stock market, and became rich beyond his wildest dreams. And now he's this loan shark who, this is not really spoilers, this loan shark who basically has just amassed so much wealth that he will lend people as much money as they want on whatever terms they want, as long as they pass a test. And the test is always like a morality test to teach them that, you know, however they've fallen off the rails, to get back on the rails. So he's like sort of a really interesting good guy and always running away from the police and stuff. It's a really interesting story, and actually better than the stereotypical Kiryu arc, I think, so far. So yeah, I'm looking forward to pursuing it further. The question is, though, because it's like, I think it switches between 4 different protagonists, or at least 3. I'm not sure if the police officer actually does become a protagonist or not. I'm not sure how fragmented it's going to be, and whether I'm really going to have enough time to play as the characters I want to play as. Because I remember playing as the big, I think he's Majima's sworn brother. I think you play as him during this game, and you can play as him in 5. And it was his story section in 5 that made me take absolutely forever to get anywhere with the game and eventually put it down, because I found it very boring. So I'm not sure if I'm going to want to spend much time playing as him. And I'd much rather spend time playing as Akiyama, which is the character I've started playing as. So we're going to have to see how it unfolds and whether it's well balanced or not. But so far, it's got one of the strongest starts to a Yakuza game that I've experienced so far.
Now, in this game, does Yakuza own the child orphanage yet? I assume the character's name is Yakuza. John Yakuza.
I don't know so far what's happened with the orphanage, because 3 is the game that's mainly about the orphanage. And it's at the moment, because it has like a cold opening where you don't learn anything about Kiryu and what's happened since 3, and it ends on a cliffhanger 3, so it just like goes from this really massive cliffhanger to you start out playing as a different character completely. So I don't really know what's happening with the orphanage, but from what I remember from 5, he's still an orphanage guy. He's still in orphanages.
Okay.
Like I played through Yakuza 4 a while ago, and obviously I'm not gonna talk about it here because you're playing it. I'm not going to reveal anything, but I do remember being quite interested in that idea of starting it out, and you're kind of like, "Where's Kiryu?" And like I said, to not give anything away, your boy shows up, obviously, but it's kind of not for a while. I thought that was kind of an interesting departure. But by that point, having played those 3 games in such close proximity, like the first 3, it was really refreshing to jump into a game where you knew you were going to get that sense of familiarity by playing as that character eventually. But the game really kind of goes out of its way to like go, let's look at some other people's stories first, like Akiyama and Seijima, who I believe is the Majima's blood brother. And the other thing I remember about Yakuza 4, and I think I said this a bit about 3 as well, is it has cutscenes in it that are just like so good sometimes and so well written. There's like an action sequence in a tea shop, which I'm not going to spoil, but it's as good as anything that like came out of those like Kinji Fukusaka films in the 70s. And if there's one thing those Yakuza games just do so well, is I think they really blend these kind of like deep and emotive narrative scenes with just the general wackiness of those games. But I don't remember a lot about 4. Like 3's the one that kind of sticks out in my mind. But yeah, I do remember it switching between those characters, and they've all got such different stories. And it's no spoiler to say everything converges, which is obviously what it's leading to. But I'm glad you're enjoying the start of it anyway.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to actually you, Chris. You have been playing the new Battle Royale, Call of Duty Warzone.
Yeah, I've not been putting a lot of time into it so far. It took 4 years to download, but and my whole monthly bandwidth. No, that's a lie. I don't have a cap on my monthly bandwidth. I have great internet, but it's not the first time they've done this, because obviously like Black Ops 4 had its own battle royale mode, which was Blackout, which always used to make me laugh, because there was like in the 90s there was a blackhead removing cream called Blackout, So every single time I saw that Call of Duty Blackout, I was just reminded of my terrible skin when I was a kid. But it's pretty good. Like, I've not put a ton of time into it, but it's typical battle royale mode. But as I've said before, people kind of rag on these Call of Duty games, but there's a fucking reason they sell 1 billion copies of them, and it's because they're really well made, really glossy, really nicely crafted, presented games with good mechanics and great movement and solid animation and reliable online. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like I think we've really kind of those games that kind of originated the battle royale mode. I'm glad that they're still popular and that they started this big genre. But whenever some of these people like with Apex Legends, when people who can throw more money in there and come up with kind of glossier looking models and tighter physics, whenever they get their hands on it, they fucking run to the moon with it. Mm-hmm. And battle royale isn't really a genre I care about. I've played all of the battle royale games for a some amount of time, but I'd much rather play typical kind of shooters or Siege more than anything. But I put some time into Warzone, and it's what you think it is. There's a huge map, an enormous fucking map, which is Verdansk, and you parachute in. Where are we dropping, boys, or whatever all the millennials are saying? But you parachute in. If you're me, you just hit that fucking ground on impact and die, and then have to wait for the next game because I'm no good at those parachute sections. And then you just run around, you grab your stuff, you find your weapons, you point out things, and you're in like a team of 3, at least for this beta mode. You're in groups of 3. And then, you run around for 10 minutes without seeing anyone, and then you get shot, and you're done. It's great.
Now, I read there was no solo queue for groups. Is that true?
At the moment, it just appears to be this trios thing. But it is still a beta, and I think people are forgetting that it is still kind of in beta mode. So who knows what they're going to do with it? And like a lot of games that do this kind of thing rotate that kind of stuff, don't they? Like they say, we're going to have duos, but we're only going to, like Apex Legends, we're only going to have duos for a month. So I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it's basically that battle royale thing you know and love, but kind of just married with that fantastic Call of Duty kind of engine that's just slick and smooth and runs well and connects well, and you've got 150 players or whatever, but there's no lag, and they just know what they're doing because they've been doing it for fucking 20 years now. But one thing that it does have that's cool, it's a really nice touch, is it has this gulag mechanic, and that's basically when you go down, your teammates continue in the fight, but when you go down, you get this really grim cutscene of like your character being dragged into this hellhole Alcatraz style prison, and then once you're in there, all the other people who've died are in there, and you basically all take it in turns to have one-on-one fights, and the people who win the fights respawn back into the battle royale mode that's going on in the background, and the people who lose the fights are out the game. So essentially, you have the chance to earn 1 extra life, but you have to fight out of prison in order to earn it.
That's an amazing feature.
Right? That's fucking great. And that's basically the main thing it brings to the party that isn't just what you see in other battle royale. There's loads of other things like, you can collect stuff and you can get loadouts and you get these big drops, like airdrops. You have armor plates which play into battle. You collect these armor plates which are really important in a game which has such short time to kill, like the Call of Duty does. And you can bring your loadouts for multiplayer mode in, but you can't just start with them. You have to kind of earn an airdrop, and then your loadout is airdropped in, and then you've got all your kit that you're used to playing multiplayer with generally. So you have to earn your way to doing that. So it does bring in all these different aspects that make it a little more than just find something and fight. And it's good for it. Like, I think if you like Battle Royale, this is definitely something you should look at, and is probably going to be one of the more popular ones. If I had to stick with Battle Royale, I'd probably go with Apex Legends because I like the characters and the craziness and the colours. Yeah. But if you're like someone who's been playing PUBG and is kind of ready to step up to something that's similar to that in tone and look and environment, but you just want it to be kind of glossier and cleaner and play a bit better, I think Warzone's something that's worth looking at. I guess the big disclaimer you have to put on this is because you have to download the Call of Duty like engine and assets to play it. If you haven't got Call of Duty installed, then Warzone, which is one map and one mode, is 100 GB download.
Fuck.
If
Jesus.
you've already got Call of Duty installed, Modern Warfare, then it's 20 gig on top of that. But if you haven't got Modern Warfare, or you've got it but you haven't got it installed, then just downloading Warzone is 100 gig.
Oh my god. Oh, I think my PlayStation 4 would explode if I tried to download something that big.
But yeah, check it out.
All right. I will agree with
If
you.
you can be bothered. If you can be bothered, and if you're not going to like have your fucking ISP shut you down then for downloading.
I'd have to delete like Spider-Man and Kingdom Hearts collection off my PS4 just to theoretically make room for this. But I do agree with you that Apex Legends still probably is my favorite of all the battle royales that I've played, mostly because it has that train heist mode that they have sporadically and they need to make it permanent because I love it so much. And if you haven't played that mode, wait for them to implement it again and get into it. It is incredibly fun. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up with Occams. You are continuing through Dragon's Dogma, and also, are you playing or watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
I am watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh.
Yeah. So I way back in the day, God, it was early '90s. Then I guess in the early 2000s, there was a little OVA 6-episode run thing for JoJo's that my friends and I watched, and it was fun. And there was actually a PlayStation. I think it was either PlayStation or Dreamcast. I remember I played it once in the arcade randomly, but there was a fighting game that was pretty great. Then I saw that Netflix had the new Stardust Crusaders, which is the third story arc. This thing, by the way, I was looking it up. It's been going on since 1987, and it's still going on, which is impressive. So yeah, I've been watching that, and that's been fun. I originally was attracted to the show way back in the day because it reminded me of a Duran Duran album cover. And it had these really weird kind of homoerotic overtones to everything, and it's a strange show, and I like all the powers of the characters. They come some of these things called stands, which sort of look like, how to describe them? If like Salvador Dali made action figures for like GI Joe, they kind of look like that a little bit. Yeah, it's fun. It's silly. It's goofy. It's very over the top. It's worth checking out. And then I've been playing the Dragon's Dogma still. Oh, that game is so good. I've having not played it since it came out originally, and in the meantime, between the original release and now playing Dark Souls, I see so much Dark Souls in Dragon's Dogma, and it's interesting to me to kind of compare the two, and just like low key amazing fucking soundtrack. Like you're walking through the wooded area at night, and the game shifts at night to let the monsters are more aggressive, different creatures come out. You have a lantern which can illuminate the area around you, but it's very still very dark and very atmospheric. And there's this kind of a female choral music playing, and it's really, really creepy but also very beautiful and serene. And just the game nails atmosphere. I just wish it had a better fast travel system, but I'm working on it. Yeah, so it's those two things. That's it.
I need to get further in Dragon's Dogma because I think I stopped about 15 hours in. I need to finish it up because it is just a shitload of fun. And you recommended pursuing magic as for my character, and yeah, that was the right choice.
Yeah, I've said this and I'll keep saying this, but that's the game to get magic right. The scope, the scale, the feeling of power, it's gotten it right better than I would say any fucking RPG ever.
You are listening to Podtoid.
All right, that is it for games, which means it is time for the news.
This is the news.
And guess what? Back to coronavirus, because it's the only thing worth talking, or only thing that anyone's talking about right now. And everything you've been looking forward to has been either canceled or postponed. Disney's Mulan, postponed. Fast 9, delayed a year. No Time to Die, more like no chance to watch till November. Sing. Marvel's New Mutants is going to have to bomb at the box office at some other time. The NBA is pausing its seasons. Major League Baseball has pushed back its opening day. Although if you're worried about catching coronavirus at the Major League Baseball game, I suggest going to Miami Marlins. because nobody goes to those games. The XFL is apparently done for the year, and Dan, I know that's a huge disappointment for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was a big XFL head. The Seattle whatever
Dragons.
Sharks or
Why do
there
I
we
know
go.
that?
Why do you know that?
Dan, are you going to be able to get a refund on your season ticket, or is that like non-refundable?
I don't know. Still waiting back from Vince on that. He hasn't returned my calls. Very upsetting.
I think they'll have to use the money they get from WrestleMania to pay back the XFL fans. So hopefully WrestleMania is not canceled. I'm surprised they haven't made that call yet, though.
A man once died on a smaller pay-per-view live.
That's true.
And Vince carried on the show. So
yeah, that is true. He is exactly. Thank you, dog. That's exactly what I wanted to say. Of course, those are just movies and sports. The big story this week is that E3 has been canceled, not postponed, but fully canceled. Bit Summit is also off this year. Pretty much all live esports events are canceled or moving online. It was very strange watching that Mortal Kombat Final, is that what it's called? I think. Final Combat with just like maybe 20 people in the audience because, that didn't have the same kind of energy that you're used to seeing at those types of events. Also, all late night shows on TV have now been filming without an audience, just as weird to watch. South by Southwest, of course, is off this year. EVE FanFest has been canceled. EGX Rezzed, which you wrote about the other day, Chris, that's been moving to the summer. And that was like a last-minute decision because I think that was supposed to take place next week.
Right.
Yeah, and now they announced that TennoCon is going all digital. There's probably a bunch more that I'm missing, and there may be more that are announced as we go forward. But pretty much just prepare to make yourself shut in for the next couple of weeks or so, because there's less and less reason to go out, which is what I've been doing for my entire life. So I'm very well prepared for this. Social distancing is now just a fancy term for what I do in public all the time, which is just be weird and keep to myself.
I was trying to think of something to say, but I can't.
It's hard to keep talking about it.
The final combat, the final combat thing, that was with Sonic Fox and Ninja somebody.
Ninja Killa, yes.
That I watched that live. I think actually I saw on our chat that you were talking about it, and I ended up tuning in. I watched that and I understood how people who watch sports and get excited felt.
Yeah.
That was really fucking good. I really loved watching that. I've found myself over the years the Evo tournaments and things. They're really enjoyable to watch. I wish I had more people to watch those with because they're really fun.
I think fighting game tournaments for me are the most watchable esport because it's easy to understand what is going on. You can tune right in and you will be caught up right in a second. Whereas if you're like watching League of Legends, fucking what's going on here? I don't know. Or a first person shooter tournament where they're just focused on one shooter. You have to kind of figure out what's going on. I don't understand why fighting games aren't the biggest esport because they're so easy to understand.
Yeah, that's I wonder if that has to do with the generation that is growing up with Fortnite and those games that are League of Legends or whatever the most popular esport right now. Yeah. I wonder if it's just the kids aren't playing fighting games as much, and that's just something skews a little bit older, or what? Because that's a really good point. Street Fighter's 30 years old. I feel like that, and that just in a Mortal Kombat. These games are so ubiquitous in gaming culture. I'm surprised they aren't bigger.
This is Podtoid.
That is it for the news, which means it is time for the Podtoid question of the show.
Ugh, what does that human blister want now?
Sorry, that is not the Podtoid question of the show. This week's question actually has to do with last week's show. We talked about the PlayStation 2 for its 20th anniversary, and as I went back through it for the edits, I started thinking about all the great games that came out of that generation of gaming. Across the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, the Xbox, and the Dreamcast, some all-time greats made their debut. And so for this question, I wanted to hear from you all about what you thought was the best franchise from that generation of gaming to make its debut. And Dan, you've been pretty quiet this episode. Let's start with you.
Devil May Cry, because it just straight up started the best action form of action in video games, straight up.
That's
without Devil May Cry, there probably wouldn't even be a Platinum game, so...
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
very true. Yeah.
I remember the first time I tried to play Devil May Cry, I didn't understand it and put it down, and it wasn't until about a decade later that I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I get this, because the first one still had that the Resident Evil kind of camera angles in it, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or it's just set. The camera was fixed position.
Yeah.
And that's what I couldn't get around. And it wasn't until I played Bayonetta for the first time that I went back to it. It's like, oh, now I get it.
My dog is very upset right now.
He wasn't going to say Devil May Cry, was he? His favorite from that generation was Dog Island, Dan. Damn it. Charlotte, what about you?
I mean, for me personally, just because of the memories I had with this series, I would say SSX. It's not like objectively one of the better games that have ever come out ever, but it also sort of gave rise to future games like Steep. So I think SSX does have quite a not a legacy, you know what I mean? It's like it started a trend, so to speak.
Yeah.
And Tricky and SSX3 were very, very good games back in the day. I don't think they've held up all that well, to be honest, but they were very, very fun, and I just spent lots of time playing those games and found them extremely relaxing and a great distraction when I was stressed. So
Yeah, I was going to say Tricky's really good. I buried myself in that game when it first came out. That's really addictive.
fortunately, I used to be able to sort of be able to almost instinctively tell when to land jumps, and I was just really, really good at that game. And I went back to it a few years ago, and I just couldn't play it anymore. I just lost the knack.
Did y'all ever play the Sega Top Skater in the arcade?
Yes, yeah.
Vaguely remember it, yeah.
I worked in an arcade and we had that, and you would think that the people. Okay, remember the scene in American History X where Ed Norton curb stomps that guy?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that's people would hit that machine harder than that. It was a great game and super really. I mean, it was really kind of the design of it being interactive with the board and all, and actually have physically sort of do your kick flips and stuff. But I don't know how that machine survived a month, because people would just stomp the shit out of it. But that talking about SSX reminded me of that game.
For my part, I thought about this kind of hard and I was going between two franchises, either X-Men Legends, which spawned the Marvel Ultimate Alliance series, or Luigi's Mansion. And I think I'm gonna have to give it to Luigi's Mansion. I just adore every fucking game in that series, all three of them. And especially with the Switch version that just came out last year, it's one of now, I think, Nintendo's most reliable and most entertaining franchises. And so, yeah, Luigi's Mansion, perfect launch game for the GameCube, got even better on the 3DS, but this Switch version knocks everything else out of the park.
I'm probably going to say Whacked, the interactive game show.
What?
Not Buzz?
No, Whacked.
Oh, Buzz was great.
I don't even think I've heard of Whacked.
No, I think I've confused it with the franchise. Like what I meant to say was Yakuza. I think there's most of my favorite franchises began before the PS2 era, so it's actually really difficult for me to think of ones that didn't start on the original PlayStation, like Resi and Grand Theft Auto and Twisted Metal. Yeah. But so I'll go with Yakuza, which is just. I've said this before on the show because Yakuza comes up a lot on this show, obviously, and when that came out and those first games came out, and every time you had a fight, you had to wait 5 minutes for it to load every single time. But when they came out, I played them, and a few people played. I knew one other person who played them, and you try and tell people to play them, and they just weren't interested. There was this massive for so long. There was this idea that they were like Grand Theft Auto, but there was no cars in them. So what was the point? And that was kind of people would come into the shop, and that's what they thought that series was. And it was hard to kind of turn people on to playing them, but it was cool, and I really liked it. And obviously, I played through those games through onto the PS3 and beyond. And as I've said before, Yakuza 0 comes out, and all of a sudden, everyone's now ready to kind of play these games. And they play them, and off the back of 0 and then the Kiwami remakes, everyone gets to play them again. And even if they, it came along a little later, or it took a while to get out of the starting blocks, the fact that eventually the Yakuza series became a mainstream series that all people who play video games have at least tried, or at least aware, or at least played. That's like a really nice ending for that series. That for a good 3 games, it almost looked like no one was going to buy into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Plus, you got
So
to
it's
be
cool.
there before everyone else.
Yeah, so I got to see it when like everything was really blurry and it took ages to load. So I got the true experience.
All these damn Yakuza casual fans these days with their fast loading screens and clear graphics.
Right, with their fucking 4K upgrades and their extra modes and their quality of life adjustments.
Ugh, they make me sick.
Whereas you remember when Kiryu looked a little bit like a member of Boyzone.
Fuck, I don't even think he had a face. I can't remember. I think he was just this like big fucking oblong with like a little red square to represent his shirt or something like that. I can't remember. But I do remember whenever in that dubbed first game, whenever someone ran at you to start a random battle, you'd hear this little sample of this voice go, "What the fuck?" But like in a really high-pitched voice. It just said like, "What the fuck?" but all as one word and really high-pitched. And that's like a little sample that I kind of wish they still kept in the games.
Oh, all right, Occams, let's wrap up with you.
You know, this is the kind of question I feel like I could divide it into categories and segments and overthink. But in my gut feeling, my first thought was Fatal Frame.
No, good answer. Yeah.
Nice. God, I really wish Nintendo would give that series to someone who would do something with it.
Dude, it is that and like Eternal Darkness and there's just a few. Just 100%, man, 100%.
Yeah. They need to buy a horror studio and just have them be their horror game developers because they have 2 great franchises under their belt that are just completely going unused outside of, Spirits and Smash. So, yeah. All right, that is just about it for the show. But before we go, Occams, we have a community shout out this week.
Yeah. We got a trifecta. We've got 2 birthdays. The Necro's birthday happened, and Alpha Deus's birthday happened. 2 folks near and dear to our hearts and the community as well. And also, just a shout out to everybody, kind of just going through this maybe quarantine, whatever's happening. Stay safe, stay sane, and I think in a time like this, the sites like Destructoid will become, even more valuable in terms of just being able to talk to other human beings and reaching out. So shout out to everybody. We're all in this together, folks.
Exactly.
Here.
I say this on the site a lot, and I know it sounds cheesy, but I do kind of mean it. Like in things like the Q posts and all that, you'll always find people who've kind of got your back. You'll always find people who support you, or people who, even if they don't necessarily kind of can relate to what you're kind of saying or what you're kind of going through, will at least try and kind of give you a bit of a boost and let you know that kind of we're all in this together. Like, it sounds ridiculous to say this about like a video game website community, but like you're always among friends with us.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it and a great cap off to the show. That is it for this episode of Podtoid. On behalf of Dan, Chris, Occam, Charlotte, and myself, thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or to the Destructoid YouTube channel. Also, I turned 35 on Wednesday.